I am Natalie, and I am 55 years old. I have been working at a local bank for 29 years. In fact, I majored in Arabic at university. I have always been interested in foreign languages, and I was particularly captivated by the beautiful sound and unique script of Arabic. After graduating, I found a job where I could make use of my language skills. I worked for a trading company handling overseas transactions, primarily negotiating with companies in the Middle East and preparing documents. However, as I continued working, I started seeking a more stable job. My desire to settle down and work in my hometown grew stronger, and at the age of 26, I decided to switch to banking. Although I had no prior experience in banking, I worked diligently and gradually earned the trust of my colleagues. For the past 29 years, I have dedicated myself to my work at this bank more than anyone else and have always prioritized my customers. Everyone at the branch regarded me as a reliable presence, and most importantly, the clients I handled placed their trust in me. The trust I built over the years was the most valuable thing to me. Since joining the bank, I had few opportunities to use Arabic, but I continued to enjoy reading Arabic novels and practicing Arabic calligraphy as a hobby. A few years after I started working at the bank, I met my husband, Joseph. He was a quiet and intelligent man. Our first encounter was at a friend's wedding. He was a friend of the groom, and we happened to sit next to each other, which led to our conversation. He studied history at university, with a particular focus on Middle Eastern history. As I listened to him talk about it, the conversation naturally shifted to Arabic, which I had studied. Before we knew it, we were deeply engaged in conversation. That was the beginning of our story. After we got married, we were blessed with 2 children, our eldest son, Adam, and our daughter, Ramona. Both of them are now married and have families of their own. Since our children left home, my husband and I have been spending peaceful days together. I took great pride in my work, and my husband always supported me. However, that peaceful life was suddenly shattered one day. One morning, as usual, I headed to the bank for work. But that day, the atmosphere at the branch felt different. A new branch manager had arrived. She was a woman named Cornelia. At just 40 years old, she had been appointed as the branch manager. With sharp eyes, she scanned every corner of the branch, exuding an attitude as if she intended to control everything. During the morning meeting, the deputy branch manager, Marion, introduced her to the staff. When they reached my desk, Marion smiled at Cornelia and said, "Branch manager, this is Natalie. She has worked at this branch for a long time, has built strong relationships with our clients, and is highly knowledgeable about our operations. If you ever have any questions about the branch, she is the best person to ask." I smiled gently and gave a slight bow. "Nice to meet you, branch manager." However, Cornelia only gave me a brief glance and slightly curled the corner of her mouth. "I see." That was all she said before immediately turning her attention to the next employee. I felt a slight sense of unease at her reaction, but I tried not to dwell on it. Once she had finished greeting everyone, she stood in the center of the branch and spoke in a calm tone. "From now on, things will be done my way. Anything unnecessary will be eliminated. That is what efficient management is about." Her words gave me an even stronger sense of unease. Of course, improving efficiency is important. However, banking is not just about managing numbers. Building trust with clients is what matters most. Yet, Cornelia seemed to have no understanding of that at all. For a while, I tried my best to follow her way of doing things. However, her policies were far too drastic. Even long-standing clients were swiftly cut off if she deemed them unprofitable. When I voiced my concern, saying, "That will cause us to lose our clients' trust," she scoffed and said, "Your methods are outdated. If we worried about things like that, this bank wouldn't survive. From that day on, my responsibilities were stripped away at an alarming rate. The list of important clients I had managed was taken from me and placed under Cornelia's direct supervision. She also began taking credit for my presentation materials, presenting them as if they were her own work. Then, on a day when Marion was away on a week-long business trip, she summoned me to her office. "Natalie, there is no longer a need for you at this bank." I couldn't believe what I had just heard. "What do you mean by that?" Leaning back in her chair, Cornelia flashed a cold smile. "I'll be blunt. You're nothing more than a useless old woman now. There's no reason for you to stay here." I couldn't process her words and simply stared into her eyes. Have I done something wrong in my work? No, it's not about that. You might be skilled, I'll give you that. But times have changed. Banking is shifting to digital services, and customer interactions are increasingly moving online. Frankly, people who cling to outdated values are nothing but a burden. I furrowed my brows without thinking. Even with digital advancements, the trust between a bank and its clients remains unchanged. A bank isn't just about numbers, it's built on human relationships, isn't it? Cornelia scoffed. That's exactly why you're outdated, Natalie. With AI and the latest systems, everything can be handled efficiently without ever meeting face to face. We don't need people like you, who go on about the importance of client relationships and sentimental ideals anymore. What she dismissed as outdated was, in reality, something of immeasurable value. I felt my grip tighten. "So, you're saying we should ignore what our clients truly want?" "That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply stating that my approach is more rational. Your way of thinking is old-fashioned and inefficient. And to be frank, with the salary we pay you, we could easily hire 2 younger employees. From a business standpoint, it's only logical to cut costly senior staff and invest in fresh talent." I exhaled slowly. Her reasoning was so short-sighted and shallow. If a bank could function solely on systems, then perhaps employees like me were unnecessary. But what clients truly sought was trust. Ignoring that would eventually lead to Cornelia's downfall. Still, it was clear that arguing here would be pointless. She had already decided to eliminate me. "Thank you for your service. I will begin processing your resignation paperwork, so please have your belongings cleared out by tomorrow." She delivered the words with cold finality. Frustration welled up inside me, but I couldn't find the right words to counter her. I simply turned and walked out of the branch manager's office. As I was sorting through my desk, my colleague Rita approached me with some shocking news. The branch manager had been taking credit for the client relationships and achievements I had built over the years, reporting them to headquarters as her own success to secure a promotion. However, as long as I remained here, her lies would be exposed. That was why she needed to get rid of me, to silence me. I felt less anger and more sheer disbelief. Was this really the reward for my years of dedicated service? Still, the thought of leaving quietly was too bitter to accept. For 29 years, I had given everything to this bank. I had no intention of letting someone like her erase it all without consequences. I immediately began working on a certain task. I changed the language settings on all the bank's computers to Arabic. Furthermore, I altered all the presentation materials that Cornelia was set to use for sealing a major contract tomorrow. Every single slide was now in Arabic. I could read Arabic, but she absolutely could not. Imagining the look on her face tomorrow lightened my mood just a little. "Good work, branch manager." Muttering those words, I quietly left the bank. On my way home, anger and emptiness swirled inside me, but strangely, I felt no regret. When I arrived home, my husband was reading a book in the living room. Letting out a deep sigh, I told him everything that had happened. "And so, I changed all the language settings on the bank's computers to Arabic and switched all of Cornelia's presentation materials to Arabic as well. For a moment, my husband looked surprised, but then he chuckled. "That's just like you, Natalie. But are you sure you'll be okay? I've already been fired. It doesn't matter anymore." I shrugged. He gave a quiet nod and said, "If this is what gives you peace of mind, then that's all that matters. I'm on your side." His words gave me a small sense of relief. The next morning, I woke up at my usual time. But today, there was no need to go to the bank. I was no longer a part of the branch. For 29 years, I had followed the same morning routine out of habit, and realizing I no longer had to do so made my chest ache just a little. However, more than anything, I felt exhilarated. Yesterday, I had changed all the language settings on the bank's computers to Arabic. All the presentation materials that Cornelia was set to use today for securing a major contract with Farida Amir had already been changed to Arabic. To her, it would appear as nothing more than a meaningless jumble of symbols. She had always used the materials I prepared, presenting them as if they were her own work. But today was different. There was no way she could successfully conduct the presentation without my help. And imagining her making a fool of herself in that moment made me feel like some of my humiliation had finally been avenged. As I ate breakfast, I sat across from my husband, Joseph. He flipped through the newspaper, occasionally glancing up at me with a smile. "Natalie, do you have any regrets?" "Not at all. I simply did what needed to be done. When someone does something wrong, they have to face the consequences, don't they?" He nodded quietly and took a sip of his coffee. Feeling reassured by his response, I glanced at the clock. It was exactly the time the bank was opening. In my mind, I pictured the chaos unfolding at the branch. The moment Cornelia arrived and opened her computer, she would realize something was wrong. Everything had been switched to Arabic. The menus, the email software, the banking system screens, every single thing in her view would be filled with characters she couldn't understand. "What is the meaning of this? Get the IT department in here now." Her furious voice would echo through the branch. But the IT staff wouldn't be able to read Arabic either. To restore the system, they would need to know how to change the language settings. And the only person who knew that was me. "Branch manager, the recovery process is going to take some time. Don't be ridiculous. I have a major contract presentation today." A panicked Cornelia hurriedly opened the presentation file stored on her computer. But what appeared on the screen were slides completely converted into Arabic. Her face flushed red as she desperately tried to make sense of the content, but of course, she couldn't read a single word. With absolutely no knowledge of Arabic, to her, it was nothing more than an indecipherable code. "This is Natalie's doing." I could clearly picture her clenching her fists in frustration. The bank had descended into complete chaos. Just as I had imagined, things were unfolding exactly as I had expected, and I received a message from Rita confirming it. In the midst of the commotion, flustered employees scrambled to fix the situation, while Cornelia was utterly confused. However, recalling me was not an option. She was the one who had thrown me out in the first place. That night, I received a call from Rita. "Natalie, you really pulled off something incredible." She laughed over the phone. "I do feel bad for causing trouble for you and the others. But I just couldn't let Cornelia get away with it." I responded with a tinge of guilt. "The contract with Mr. Amir was cancelled, just as you predicted." I gasped at her words. He was the president of a prestigious company, and if the deal had gone through, it would have brought massive profits to the bank. I knew it. I muttered under my breath. During the presentation, Cornelia desperately tried to use the Arabic slides, but Mr. Amir saw through it almost immediately. It turns out he actually understands Arabic, so he quickly realized that she hadn't created the materials herself. Rita continued speaking in a calm voice. And then, he told Cornelia, "Please call Natalie." But she responded, "Natalie resigned yesterday." Apparently, Mr. Amir looked absolutely shocked and asked, "Why did she resign?" I decided to be honest with Rita and told her the truth. I couldn't forgive Cornelia for firing me, so I changed all the materials into Arabic as payback. Rita didn't sound surprised at all. I figured as much. But it turns out this wasn't just a simple business deal for Mr. Amir. He specifically wanted you to be involved. The moment Cornelia couldn't properly explain why you had left, he ended the conversation immediately. At the entrance, he left her with one final remark: "I have no intention of signing a contract with a bank that lacks trustworthy personnel." And then, he walked away. There was a brief silence before Rita continued. Losing such a major deal like that. Cornelia's promotion to headquarters might not be happening after all. I nodded over the phone. Now, she had been forced to realize just how valuable I was to the bank. A few days later, the deputy branch manager, Marion, returned from his business trip and called me. I told him everything that had happened in the branch manager's office. On the other end of the line, he let out a deep sigh. "She probably waited until I was away because she knew I valued your work. I'm sorry, Natalie. I should have been more cautious. Marion, this isn't your fault. But I can't accept how the branch manager handled things. Did she even think about what would happen to the branch after firing me? It feels like all my years of dedication were trampled on." I spoke calmly. Then, Marion said, "To be honest, the branch is in serious trouble right now. Clients had found out that I was forced out, and many were outraged. Longtime customers who had trusted me were now losing faith in the bank and were beginning to move their deposits elsewhere. This distrust was spreading, and the branch had fallen into complete disarray. Marion had already reported the situation to headquarters, but they had yet to find a solution to fix it. And then, headquarters finally took notice of the crisis and decided to launch an official investigation. Rita was the one who informed me. Well, now the real show begins." I smiled quietly, sipping my tea. "Natalie, things are finally in motion." My husband, Joseph, glanced up from his newspaper. "Yes. I'm looking forward to seeing how the branch manager who called me a useless old woman plans to survive this inspection from headquarters." He let out a small chuckle but spoke gently. "The people at headquarters must have seen the value of your work. There's no need to worry." I nodded. I had done nothing wrong. The only thing happening now was that the branch manager who took my job and forced me out was finally receiving the evaluation she deserved. The next day, the investigation at the bank officially began. Evans, the department head from headquarters, personally arrived for the inspection and confronted Cornelia in her office. Branch manager Cornelia explained this situation to me. Why was such an important contract terminated, and why are so many clients closing their accounts all at once? There was a quiet fury in his voice. Cornelia's expression stiffened as she scrambled to defend herself. "It's all because of Natalie. She's the one who caused chaos in the system and sabotaged the deal." But Evans shot her a piercing glare. "Natalie's fault? Then tell me, why did this branch descend into such disorder the moment she was gone?" Cornelia was at a loss for words. "Moreover, I've already heard about Natalie's performance from headquarters. She was reported to be an exceptionally skilled employee. And yet, you deemed her incompetent and forced her out of the bank, didn't you?" The branch manager's office fell into complete silence. Marian, who had been present in the meeting, also locked eyes with Cornelia. At that moment, her entire skin crumbled. Meanwhile, I received the news at home. Natalie, headquarters has confronted Cornelia with your true performance record. Marian's voice came through the phone. So, my absence has officially been recognized as a problem? It's more than that. The internal audit uncovered proof that Cornelia had been taking credit for your achievements. I was surprised but quickly understood. Cornelia had always used my materials and presented them as if they were her own. There must have been records of that. And what's going to happen to Cornelia? It's not entirely clear yet, but it looks like she'll be removed from the branch. I let out a quiet breath. The next day, familiar faces appeared at my doorstep. Marian and Department Head Evans. Natalie, we owe you an apology. Evans bowed deeply. We've come to realize just how great a loss it was for the bank to lose someone as exceptional as you. I gazed at him in silence. Headquarters would like to formally ask you to return. The branch needs you. Would you consider coming back? I stood at my doorstep, looking at both Evans and Marian as they bowed before me. Evans's voice carried a sincere plea. Going back to that bank. A whirlwind of emotions stirred inside me. The humiliation of being called a useless old woman by Cornelia as I walked away from that place. The humiliation of having the trust I had built over the years trampled in an instant. Yet, the gratitude I felt for the many clients who still believed in me and stood by my side. I let out a slow breath. Then, I spoke to them. Please give me some time to think. Neither Evans nor Marian pressured me for an answer. Of course. We want you to take your time and decide what's best for you. But I want you to know, the bank truly wants you back. After they left, I sat down across from my husband, Joseph. What do you think? He took a quiet sip of his tea before speaking. What matters most is what you want. If returning to the bank will make you happy, then you should go without hesitation. But if it will only bring you more pain, there's no need to force yourself. I thought for a moment. Going back means I'll have to fight all over again. But if my clients are willing to return, then I feel like my job isn't done yet. Joseph smiled. Then you should go. You've always taken pride in your work. If you return, I believe the bank will finally move in the right direction again. His words gave me the final push I needed. The next day, I called Evans. If you'll have me, I would be happy to return. His voice was filled with relief. Thank you, Natalie. I truly appreciate your decision. A few days later, I stepped through the bank's doors once again. The atmosphere felt different from before. The organization that had nearly fallen apart under Cornelia's influence was now beginning to recover with my return. At first, my colleagues looked surprised. But soon, their expressions softened into warm smiles. Natalie, welcome back. We're so happy you've returned. I was greeted with warmth. And as news of my return spread, clients began coming back to the bank, restoring their accounts one after another. If Natalie is here, I can trust my money with the bank again. We're counting on you, Natalie. Dozens of people walked through the doors, speaking those words. Hearing them, I felt from the bottom of my heart that returning had been the right decision. New companies also began signing contracts with the bank, and the branch's financial situation improved significantly. In the end, trust is everything in banking. Meanwhile, Cornelia was undergoing a full audit from headquarters. One by one, her wrongdoings were exposed. She had manipulated client records to falsify her performance. She had taken credit for my achievements and reported them as her own. And above all, she had prioritized her own promotion over the bank's success, committing countless fraudulent acts. She was stripped of her position as branch manager and reassigned to a remote, small branch. There were no major clients there, and the false glory she had built for herself was now worthless. Rumors even circulated that the bank was considering legal action against her for her misconduct. When I left, she called me a useless old woman. But in the end, the one deemed unnecessary was her. Together with Marion, the newly appointed branch manager, I set out to rebuild the bank. The branch regained its energy, and we steadily rebuilt the trust of our clients. Natalie, thanks to you, everything is returning to how it should be, Marion said. No, I replied. From here on, we're going to make it even better. The branch once controlled by Cornelia no longer existed. In its place, a new bank was emerging, one that valued true trust and integrity. I stood by the window, gazing outside. As a result of the trial, Cornelia was permanently banned from the banking industry and faced a massive financial penalty. Her future was completely sealed. The woman who once looked down on me with cold disdain and called me a useless old woman had met a pitiful end. But I felt no sympathy for her. She was simply reaping what she had sown. One day, Department Head Evans visited the branch. Natalie, well done. Thanks to your return, the branch has fully recovered. I smiled. It's not just because of me. It's because everyone in this branch worked together. Evans nodded in satisfaction. Now, there's something official I need to tell you. He handed me a document. This branch was once on the verge of being merged and shut down. But given its recent recovery, we have decided that it will remain operational. I instinctively let out a breath of relief. Had Cornelia's methods continued, this branch might have been erased entirely. But we had prevented that, securing its future. Your leadership and the trust of our clients saved this branch. We owe you our gratitude, Natalie. At his words, I bowed my head in quiet appreciation. That night, I sat on the terrace with Joseph, drinking tea and gazing up at the sky. Natalie, you've truly done something remarkable. He smiled as he spoke. I only wanted to protect what I believed in. For a while, we sat in silence, feeling the gentle night breeze. I had no doubts left. I would continue working at this branch for the clients who had placed their trust in me. Because trust is the true foundation that upholds a bank. I closed my eyes softly and smiled. Everything had returned to where it belonged.